Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports Exhorted. And first and foremost, thank you everybody. 40,000 views. We hit another milestone. Can't do it without you. We love you. We appreciate you. But continue to spread the word. Like, subscribe, review, rate us, share it. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Because we definitely will appreciate it and keep fire coming for you. And I got with me the one and only. Born in Texas, raised in Virginia, representing New Jerusalem from Millville to Teaneck, Trenton, Camden, everything in between. Madison, stand up. Shout out to the JVP representing Jersey. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Logical. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it. Facts over feelings, baby.
And then it is I, your unorthodox statistician. Going left so much that you thought I was southpaw. Going left way more than Shakur Stevenson. Throwing more lefts than Deontay Wilder could ever dream of. 2-5. And tonight, we got the NFC East. It's about time to start talking about some football. So let's get right to it. We'll get it off my chest. So, last week was Big 12 Media Days. I made a video, 2-5 Daily, called Open for Business, where I brought up, hey, you know what? Maybe the Big 12 is trying to make a plot for Florida State and Clemson. They're open for business. The last time Euromark said they were open for business, here comes 4 new teams. So, is this one of those things where when we hear this man say these words, something major is going to happen? We'll have to wait and see. So I wake up today. I listen to a bunch of podcasts. I get on YouTube for a little bit. What do I hear? Is the Big 12 making a move for Florida State? Big 12 making a move for Clemson? Now, NCAA 25 came out today. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to go ahead and set that up, you could get your first look at Florida State and Clemson in the Big 12. You know what I'm saying? But that just goes to say the ACC, just like the city of San Antonio, has no vision. You know what I'm saying? There was a point in time where San Antonio was only 90,000 people. And here we are at 1.5 million people, and they ain't update the highways or the roads once in that time frame. That's exactly what happened to the ACC. The media contract started changing. Money started getting thrown around. And the ACC signed themselves away to ESPN to the tune of 2036. So that's why we are where we are. And Clemson brought up a very good question. If we leave the ACC, how are they going to keep our conference, our game rights if we play in another conference?
Got to read the fine print.
Got to read the fine print. So I expect Florida State and Clemson at least to be on the move within the next 2 years. Depending on if it's the Big Ten. If it's the Big Ten, we're probably looking closer to 2028 because their contract runs out in 2031. So they're probably going to hold out until, and I'm sure they don't want baggage right now. When they take Florida State or Clemson, they want no strings attached, no ties involved. So ACC, this is your last stand, but I'm afraid it's over, my friends.
Yeah, it's getting short, man. You're running out of viable candidates in your conference. You're just losing people, and people are following the money, and everyone wants to talk about what's the problem here, the problem that. A lot of times, man, it's just simply the money. The money is too good to give up. I'm looking into the camera. Sometimes the money's just too good. People gonna follow the money no matter where it goes, even if it doesn't make geographical sense. Like Stanford being in the ACC makes no sense. It's literally called the Atlantic Coast Conference. You're on the complete opposite coast. It just it doesn't.
I call it the All Coast Conference.
It's like my life that I lived for the last 43 years is I've been living in truths. Certain things made sense. Certain people got certain roles in certain movies. Directors directed them. Certain people got paid in sports. Certain people got highlighted. Certain, regions had this, like certain music came from here. It was like, all right, cool. It was all like an understanding. Now it's just like people are just throwing all the rules out. Like, no, you could be whatever you want, anything you want. Like, yeah, you could be the ACC champ and you play in Northern California. Or you could be in the Big 12 and it's 18 teams. It's like, nothing has to make any sense anymore. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I'll throw that to the pot of the $200 billion that's being floated around between all these colleges. Meanwhile, people graduate and can't get jobs and they got student loan debt. But listen, I'm not going to get on that political platform right now. I'll do that later.
Yeah.
But speaking of colleges and money and like things going around in football, like I'm loving it. I'm getting excited. We're in mid-July right now. Exciting football times, but it's summertime, You got guys reporting OTAs, mini camps, rookie mini camps. We have the podcast is spinning up. The fantasy football practice drafts are spinning up. Coaches are kind of leaking their hints like, oh, yeah, we're going to have this guy lined up at wide receiver and what round is he going to go into fantasy. So all this football talk and all this college football talk is great. But I want to get into to somewhat of the dark side. And the dark side is ignorant behavior. I'm sick of my young black athletes out here just doing ignorant shit. Y'all got to stop, man. Georgia, stop letting these dudes get Chargers or Challengers or Camaros, whatever dealership you got to deal with. Get these dudes minivans. Let them roll around 6 deep in a minivan. If you try to race that, then you just get kicked off the team. But if you put a 20-year-old in a Charger, he might press the gas a little hard. But you keep getting in trouble for vehicle stuff. We all remember Henry Ruggs, the third, one of the fastest wide receivers in the league, was on the Vegas Raiders. The Vegas Raiders are probably like this year's new darling team. He could have been a part of that opposite Devontae Adams, but instead he's in prison for some years for being just not making wise decisions, drinking and driving, speeding. And everyone saw that. We all saw it. But yet the Georgia players keep doing it. People are dying in these situations. And it's like, yo, are we not learning? Okay, maybe a few people are learning. But then you have guys like Malik Neighbors. We all know what your rookie contract is. We know what the taxes are in the state of New Jersey because technically this is New York. He might have to pay some kind of New York tax. I'm not sure exactly wherever the team's headquartered, but even if you're paying a Jersey tax, that money isn't as long as people think it is. So don't be in a strip club with all this jewelry on, showing your teeth, throwing your money. People are like, oh, he just living his life. Yeah, cool. You can live your life. You can take that same $3,000-$4,000 you throwing in a strip club that you're wasting and just go to an all-inclusive resort, hit up the girls on Instagram and take them with you and have the same fun. Like, you just showing off for dudes at that point. And it's like, that's the thing I don't get. Like, that doesn't impress a room full of women. Dudes are impressed by that. Dudes are watching that. And some dudes might want to catch you in a parking lot because you're doing that. It happens. What's the boy name? Played for Denver, got caught in the alley in Vegas. Javon.
DB. Yeah.
No, the wide receiver, Javon something. I forgot what his name was. But he was out in Vegas, all his jewelry on, gambling, walked out the side door, got caught in the alley. This happens to guys all the time. You get run down on because you want to go out in the club and show off. We all know you got paid. You don't have to let everybody know you got paid. We all
Darren Williams.
Nah, it was a different one.
Not Darren Williams?
The Denver wide receiver probably was like 2009, 2010. I believe it's Javon something. I think he might have played for the Redskins and then Denver, but it was the same thing. It's like, listen, I get it. We're flashy people. I mean, you can see my stack of Jordans over here with the Jordans up top. It's, it's what we do, and I get it. But you got to recognize, like, the people before you, some of this behavior was their downfall. I'm not saying you can't enjoy and buy and spend your money what you want to spend it on, but understanding your environment that you're in, understanding that this, because it's happened so many times, you're less likely to get a pass. Because if you go to Georgia, if you're the next kid in Georgia to get a speeding ticket or a reckless driving ticket, they kicking you off the team. Because it's like, listen, man, we've had this happen like 9 times in the last 2 years. It's been all over the news. Yeah, some of those guys still got drafted, but we're not going to keep dealing with this. And you're a 4th string running back. We can get 4 more of you from any transfer school in America. They're going to get rid of you. So you want to keep throwing your money away, throwing your time away by giving it back to the government because you want to do things to put them in your crosshairs? By all means, keep doing it. But other than that, man, get your shit straight. Get a financial advisor, put your money where it belongs, and do things that are entertaining, but you don't have to draw that kind of negative attention to yourself because it makes you look like a target. And then when something does happen to you, people are going to look at that like, oh, see, well, this is how you were behaving. We saw the video on Instagram. So this is your life you're in. Like, no one's going to treat you like a person. Like, if you do get robbed, no one's going to treat you like a victim. And they're going to treat you like you deserved it.
Don't forget my guy, Jordan Addison, getting a DUI, falling asleep behind the wheel.
Yo, and I get it, man. I was 22. I was 23. I was doing reckless stuff. But when I went to Commander's call, and it was like that dude standing up there giving a briefing on a DUI, it's like, whoa. Or they had to go form up outside the Wing Commanders building at 5 o'clock in the morning and
service
change
dress.
Service dress out there at 5 a.m. Saturday morning and changing the DUI countdown with your commander, your chief, your flight chief, your supervisor. You're out there in your blues changing the DUI countdown sign every day. And then you're at the gate every weekend giving out the business cards for the taxis. Like, okay, this is a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just go ahead and pay the $5 for the cab. Like, don't even drive your car to the club. Like, that was one thing they briefed. Like, listen, if you know you're going to be drinking, just don't even drive your car to the club because the likelihood of you getting a DUI driving somebody else's car leaving the club is highly unlikely. But if you leave and your car still parked there, like, I don't want to leave my car here, and then you end up driving it home, now you stuck at a traffic light asleep. So, I don't know, just wising up. I want these guys to have long careers and, sustainability after your career. But you see how quickly it goes by the wayside.
Facts. All right, so we're moving on to the NFC East, aka smarten up, Nas. So as I sit here looking down the NFC East, you got the Philadelphia Eagles trying to bounce back from whatever the hell happened last season. We still don't know. I'm surprised we didn't get some stories out of last season coming into this year of what the Eagles fell apart. So I guess we're going to have to wait about 10 years for Jalen Hurts' book. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got Dallas coming off of a pathetic, with a capital P playoff loss, as if that's anything new. But that one just felt extra pathetic. Saying you got the Giants bringing back Daniel Jones from injury, still hasn't thrown for 25 touchdowns in a season yet. Some people would have you believe that he's had top 10 quarterback seasons anyway. And then, of course,
I made an articulated argument.
And then, of course, you have the beloved Washington Commanders who have their franchise quarterback apparently, but they still got a DB, a player out here looking like the Passion of the Christ dude, saying, I don't think he's 8 since Christmas ended. So, we'll get to that in a little bit. So, Mr. Logical, what are your early thoughts on the NFC East?
NFC East, my early thoughts are it could be interesting. It really could be interesting. I believe that whatever the Eagles went through last year, there's still a lot of, like, the consensus is maybe with the old regime kind of leaving, maybe some new guys step up because you lost Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Kelsey retired.
Mm-hmm.
Now you add in Saquon. You lost both coordinators, DC and the OC. So
second
maybe
year in a row.
second year in a row. So maybe getting some people out and allow him. We all talk about Jalen Hurts and like his propensity to be just like a leader of men. They talk about him. Anytime someone talks about him in an interview, they talk about how he's a leader of men. He's a leader of men. Maybe now he can take that responsibility on, because you say you lose 3 or 4 leaders in Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelce. Maybe Jalen Hurts is still a great enough leader that he can fill the void of those 3 guys left. Because sometimes, some teams lose a leader and it's kind of fall apart because that person was like the core. Like if you think about the Patriots, Tom Brady was probably like the leader. Everyone can look to him and he can cover up the mistakes of everybody else. When he left, New England has been struggling ever since. And not like he went down to Tampa, he still was struggling, but you could just tell when it was like time for it to like really take off, he handled it. I think Jalen Hurts has the opportunity to do that this year. And he has Saquon Barkley to hand the ball off to, so that'll help. Dallas, I don't know if it's the same thing. It's like, are these contract negotiations motivation? Or is it going to be my ankle hurts, I can't go? Because it can go either way. And I think that's probably the most interesting thing. With Washington, you got a rookie quarterback and a head coach getting a second chance. That can go either way. Some teams you look at like, okay, this team is still rebuilding. You can clearly see it. And then with Daniel Jones and the Giants, I think the all-season Hard Knocks comment, like that one clip everyone's been kind of sharing through Twitter, and they were talking about it on different sports podcasts with Joe Shane talking about, do I really want to pay $12 million to a running back? And, after I'm paying the guy $40 million to throw the ball, whatever the case may be, I'm paraphrasing. Maybe that's the situation where does that team fall apart? Does Drew Lock look better than Daniel Jones on a weekly basis? And you say, well, and I give him a shot. Do you try to wiggle your way out of the Daniel Jones contract? So once again, you start out 0-3, there could be some chatter for any of these teams. Any of these teams start out 0-2, or after the first month in the season, they don't look like they're going to win the division. It can be catastrophic problems for every team, short of Washington, because they've already kind of started their rebuild. So I think Washington can, after the first 4 weeks, could be 2-2, and it could look like, okay, we're going somewhere. But Philly, Dallas at 2-2 could look like things might not be a little shaky. And with the Giants, if they're 2-2, but Daniel Jones isn't the reason that they got their 2 wins, but he's definitely the reason they got their 2 losses, then that can explode. So I think it's just so much drama with this conference, and I think that's why the most popular team is not just region, because Dallas isn't one of the bigger markets. It's just, we talked about the Dallas owner in the 70s kept them in the East because he wanted to play in these games, these primetime games. Yeah.
So like when I look at the division, my first thought is Philadelphia is the most talented team, and Philadelphia does the best as far as addressing needs when it comes to free agency, the draft, so on and so forth. Like you always talk about how they basically have the last 3 years of the University of Georgia on their defense. And on top of that, what was their problem last year on defense? Besides they couldn't stop the run. But, James Bradbury, saying might as well nickname that guy Butter, because, he was getting toasted by everybody. Darius Slay started to fall off, getting a little bit older, a little long in the tooth, if you will. So what do? They go out and get Quinyon Mitchell, who has the potential to be a top 2 or 3 corner from this draft. They go out and get Cooper DeJean, who everybody, like media-wise was fawning over, So if nothing else, they got a good special teams player, but potentially, they have another defensive back with speed going up against CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks, going up against Malik Neighbors, going up against Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. So that's what Philadelphia needed to address outside of whatever personality conflicts, were going on in that locker room, because we still don't have answers. And you mentioned Saquon Barkley. He's going to be Jalen Hurts' best friend. He's going to add an element to that offense, catching the ball out of the backfield, that is going to save the Eagles and save him from making some of the throws that he made last year, because they got into a pattern last year where Jalen Hurts just said, I'm throwing it to A.J. Brown. I don't care who's around. I don't care how many people are around. Even though they had Devontae Smith across the way. You know, so even though there's a person named Dallas Goedert that exists, you know, he was just going to force the ball to AJ Brown, and of course that could be, you
AJ's
know,
down there
one of those
somewhere.
locker room things. You know, I think he's a little bit better than Jason Sehorn. Well, not better, faster. I meant to say he's faster than Jason Sehorn. So we'll see what happens there. But you know, so they started 10-1, and then they went 1-5 down the stretch to include that loss to Arizona. The thing that was concerning for me that I wonder if it's going to roll over into this season, you brought up Jalen Hurts and his leadership. That was what stood out to me because when I was watching Jalen Hurts, especially that playoff game against Tampa, he just seemed so disinterested. You know, like back in the day when the Heat played Dallas in the finals and LeBron was going through whatever he was going through, the word they kept saying was like, he's just so disengaged. That's what concerned me about Jalen Hurts because I had never seen that before. We saw this guy get benched in college, you know, and have to come back and save his team's bacon when that quarterback got hurt. And he sat there the whole time, didn't make any waves. He just took it all in. He came in and he did the job when it was time to do the job. So that stood out to me. And I wonder, you know, they're bringing in Vic Fangio. You know, they got rid of Brian Johnson as the offense coordinator, but I don't necessarily like Kellen Moore.
Go Utes.
So, you know, so to me, there's no question in my mind that everything created equal, Philadelphia should walk away with this division. I just don't know if they can.
Well, I mean, that team down in Texas did have the guy who was second in MVP voting.
Oh, you gonna make me repeat myself, huh?
But with that second, his numbers were probably more in line with a traditional MVP vote. Like we talked about the Lamar MVP, like it doesn't have an asterisk on it. I know we've been talking about like a lot of people who win awards and championships.
To repeat myself is what you about to do.
No, so I'm not like, you know, I had to step away to grab some water. I want to believe in Philly, and you talked about that disengagement with Jalen Hurts. I've been, like I said, just like I referenced like my kids playing sports. Like they played a lot of sports. I played baseball growing up, and then around like 7th, 8th grade, like I didn't grow, so I couldn't play any more sports. So I was like, you know, I just kept academic. But being involved with their sports and just seeing them and talking to them at the wins and losses, being at all the games over the last, I'm going to say about 8 years, I've been at multiple games. What I noticed is that towards the end of the season, sometimes you're done before the season's over and you just happen to make the playoffs. So you're just playing one more game. Or you're done at the wrestling tournament, but you just got to finish because it's an all-day thing. Like I remember one year my son was at a tournament and it started late. The gym was so hot and his 2 matches kept getting pushed because they couldn't get the projector right. So as we're just there all day, it's just like he just more and more, he just felt like, I just don't feel like being here. I love this sport. I love doing it, but just today is not the day, but I'm just here. So he did his first match and he went for his move. It didn't work. And he was like, you know what? The kid pinned him. And he was like, Dad, I want to go. I'm just not feeling today. And I think that's how some of the Eagles probably felt about the season. Like, you know what? We started off 10-1, so you basically stumbled into the playoffs, finishing 1-5 down the stretch. It's like they probably like, you know what? I'm done with this season. I'm done hearing Sirianni. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I think is going to be the detriment of Philly. I don't think their head coach is more mature than any of the players. I think the head coach's lack of maturity is going to be the downfall. I just have a feeling where instead of him looking at let me pull up their schedule. I'm going to just pull up a game on a random game.
Well, since you want to talk about schedule, I know, real quick. So, you know, I think they start off fine, right? They start off with Green Bay in Brazil, you know, so obviously that's going to be a tough game. You know, Jordan Love is the second coming. He's the Messiah. You know what I mean?
About to get $56 million.
You know what I mean? But then week 2 and 3, Atlanta, Monday Night Football, New Orleans. Yes.
Yeah.
If Philly starts 1-2, we got a problem.
I'm not even talking about them starting off bad. I'm just talking about his behavior. For instance, week 7, December 20th against the Giants. I think that is their first division game. Yeah. So that's their first division game.
Okay.
I've been to MetLife a couple of times. The fans are you're right on top of the sideline. There's not a lot of space. It's a pretty tight arena because where it's located on the. I can see him getting into it with the fans after their first touchdown.
He's known to do that.
And not focus on, sending the kick team out.
Well, if I remember correctly, it was a game against the Giants where you first brought that up, where I think it was a playoff game and he got into it with the crowd, and that was when you first started bringing that up.
Yeah, he got it the game against the Colts after they fired Frank Wright. He was like, that was for Frank. They won that game 17-15 or something like that. I see if they beat him 37-7, and it was they won I think they might have been down late, and
they were down early because they were I don't know if they were undefeated, but they were it was something crazy. They were 9-2 or something.
Clearly better. Yeah. Clearly playing a team that just fired their head coach prematurely.
And Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Saturday was the head coach, and he's yelling at the audience, dog, you won the game 17-15. Be easy. So I think that is probably the piece. If I had to rank head coach maturity, they would be last there. Team cohesion, I'm going to Dallas. I think they have the propensity to fall apart because their defensive coordinator is on a lame duck contract. The star wide receivers has gotten extended. The very vocal defensive end, who I like, but I think he fades at the end of the year. He's not on an extension yet. Their quarterback's not an extension. For the second, I guess we can call this the third time they put him, fourth time maybe they put him through this, because if you factor in they franchised him twice. They franchised him twice. He broke his ankle. Then they gave him the big deal. And then over the last couple of years, they could have extended him last year, or even so far this year, they haven't done it. And the head coach, who has 36 wins in the last 3 years, he's not extended. It's I get if you don't want to pay the quarterback $60 million. But the coach has gotten you 36 wins in the last 3 years. He should have gotten an extension. You as an organization have to put your faith in something, because right now they're putting their faith in this expectation that people are just going to just grind as a prove it year. I'm you got too many people prove it deals that could all leave.
Well, that was something that I had brought up because, Dak wants his $60 million. CD wants
Rumor has it that people think can he be? I don't know if he's really asking for $60 million, considering he watched his undersized defense get run over
after what Dallas put him through the first time they went through these contract talks.
Well, he already got him with that. He got 90-something million his first year.
I know, and he had to work to get they had to fight for that. You know what I mean? And here we are again. You got CeeDee Lamb, trying to get paid. You got Micah Parsons doing everything but concentrating on football, arguing with teammates on the internet.
Him and CJ Stroud are great. They are great.
They are, but
I don't like a lot of podcasts. I like our podcast, and I like their clips.
And Van Der Esch is gone. They lost a few players to Washington, as you know. Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong, Tyler Biadasz. They lost a lot of people, so now I question their depth as well. Jerry Jones didn't do anything in the offseason. They did
nothing of note. They didn't do anything of note.
Yeah, they did the Miami Heat thing where they're like, hey, we are who we are. Come beat us. At least Miami Heat have Terry Rozier to fall back on. Dallas doesn't even have anything similar to that.
I'll throw Jerry this bone. Pause. He does draft well. He does draft players that perform very early in their contracts. The problem is he always wants to pay them a lot, and now he doesn't want to pay him at all.
Right. And then
so he went years paying Jalen. Then he paid Zeke and he paid Dak eventually. So
Mhm.
he paid his guys. He paid He paid his offensive line. He was making everybody like the highest paid player for all these chunks of years, and it wasn't resulting in wins. And I think now he went to pendulum completely the opposite direction. Like, I'm not paying anybody. Y'all got to go prove it. It's like, that's not a smart business move, because Dak will be in Nevada next year throwing passes to Devontae Adams
And
if
that's the
you
thing,
don't act
right?
right.
And that's the thing, right? Because even when you look at the backfield, the running game was abysmal last year. Tony Pollard's over in Nashville now. So you got Rico Dowdle, you got Royce Freeman, you got Deuce Vaughn, who I'm taller than, and then you got like a whole
Zeke.
lot of nothing. Oh yeah, you got Zeke. You brought back the Cookie Monster. So I guess that puts you back in prime position to win this division and make some noise in the playoffs. I think not. So like what I was going to say when I had said you're going to make me repeat myself, it wasn't because I said anything tonight. Saying I want to go back to last season when I just tell everybody, look at Dak's numbers at home and then look at his numbers on the road. One, that'll tell you why he didn't win MVP. Two, it'll tell you why Dallas falters. So like this is just inconsistency at its finest. And so when I'm looking at Dallas, for example, like when I'm looking at their schedule, right? Because you gotta look at
Check
the
the
schedule. That's
schedule.
right. So week 5, they go to Pittsburgh. They go to Heinz Field. And I know I'm down on Pittsburgh this year. It's not even called Heinz Field anymore. I think it's Accenture Field or something
Yeah,
like that.
Central Field, yeah.
Yeah. They go there. Then they get Detroit at home before their bye week, right? They come off the bye, go to San Francisco and Atlanta back to back. Now, I know Dallas always plays well against Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins should be in form by then. I would think that he's going to be back in shape by then. But let me tell you something. Playing the 49ers for the Cowboys is like screaming Candyman. This team has been beating on their ass
Anderson, Santa
for
Clara.
years. Anderson, Santa Clara, or San Jose, depending on who you talk to. I don't like that part of the schedule. You know what I mean? Because you're coming off of the easy portion of your schedule, but then it's going to hit you right in your face. And how does Dallas react? And this is where, when I brought up depth earlier, if they have any attrition at all, is Brandon Cooks going to step up this year? Like I just look around Dallas, and it's not even the fact, because when you look at a team like San Francisco, for example, you can look at San Francisco and say, well, hey, San Francisco didn't really bring in a lot. But guess what? San Francisco's got the best roster in the league. You know what I mean? I don't even know if Dallas is a top 6 roster at this point. So those are my questions.
I mean, Dallas, it's a lot of questions with Dallas, but I think because offensive line, they're always solid.
Tyler Guyton, they drafted him.
The run game will be solid, because you don't need, every team doesn't need Saquon, CMC, and all these guys make moves. If you think about it, a stat that I heard today, Najee Harris had 1,035 yards last year, and Warren had like 840 or something like that. So they had terrible quarterback play, and they still got 1,800 yards out of their 2 running backs.
Yeah, Saquon ran for 962.
And granted, Najee Harris is Derrick Henry size, so like that probably helps them get those extra yards towards the end of the game. But with no quarterback threat, they still were able to manage the amount of yards. You get Zeke in the fold. People always talk about Zeke being out of shape, but like he still scored like 12 touchdowns a year before he went to New England. He just went to New England. Like I could have called plays against the New England's offense from my house. Like, yo, just put 8 in the box and make Mac Jones make an on-time throw. Like Zeke wasn't going to be able to do anything in that offense. Very quiet 1,035. But like that's the stuff that kind of happens when you strip it down. I can kind of see Jerry's point of view. Like, okay, I'm not going to go and put the next 3 or 4 years on the books right now if I don't know how these guys are going to play out. I
Right.
get it. It's a dangerous game, but in the same sense, we've seen it play out with Dak before. And how I talked about with the Georgia players and all, we've seen this play out before. You ended up paying him anyway. And Otis, to answer your question, I don't know if Dak is going to want $60 million from another team. I think he'll go somewhere else for 4 years, $210 million, but it's fully guaranteed. I think he'll take that 52 and a half fully guaranteed to go to Dallas. I mean, go to Vegas. But if the Cowboys are going to try to make a deal with them, they're going to be like, no, I want 60 because they're dangling them out there. Because like Kirk Cousins probably wanted guaranteed money from Minnesota. He probably wanted more than $100 million guaranteed. But when they said they were going to give it, he was like, okay, cool. I'll just take this 180 for 4 years from Atlanta. He probably wanted more than 45 from Minnesota because I'm already here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to go somewhere else for 45.
Yeah, he
like,
walking
all
up
these
in
other guys
Jerry
getting
office.
56.
He walking up in Jerry office saying, "Fuck you, pay me."
Yeah, he walk up there like Q with the baseball bat. But I think he'll walk into to Davis' office like, listen, man, just guarantee my whole contract, and I'll come, because the Raiders, as of right now, if you think about it, are probably the only team that would be in the market for a big free agent quarterback, because they don't normally hit the market. And I think them not drafting a quarterback, not making a move to go from, I believe, 13 into the top 10 to get a guy is evident that I think they're willing to ride with Gardner Minshew, whatever he can get, see what Antonio Pierce can do with his program, and then bring a guy like Dak in next year. I think that's
the
viable.
The Saints only spent about $25 million in free agency, and they still spent about $10 million more than the Cowboys did. But the Cowboys do have Trevon Diggs coming back. What's that going to look like? Coming off the ACL, he was feast or famine to begin with. It was either a pick or he was giving it up. You got DeRon Bland, broke the record for pick sixes last year. What's that look like year two? Obviously, I don't think that is realistic to think that he's going to do the same have the same pick six success that he had this past season in that way. So, I don't know.
What does Zimmer's defense look like compared to Dan Quinn?
And that's what I was going to bring up.
A lot of players to Washington.
Right. I was going to bring that up. I do like Mike Zimmer. But I got questions about Dallas's linebackers. I think the thing with Dallas is we've gotten used to certain things. Dallas is good for 11 or 12 wins. Dallas is good to win games at home, but this is the NFL. Like, your reputation doesn't carry you. You have to maintain these successes, and I just don't know if they can. So as we go down, to good old Landover, Maryland, not to be confused with Washington, D.C. Jaden Daniels has the keys to the franchise. Austin Eckler wants to do half the work, so he's here for half the pay. 2 years, $11 million, and now he's going to share responsibility with Brian Robinson. So maybe that'll make him happy because we don't have to rely on him. But Washington still has offensive line questions that I don't think have been resolved yet. I know they made a big push in free agency to get some linemen, but I felt like you missed the opportunity in the draft maybe to get some linemen. They went and drafted Johnny Newton, who was probably the best defensive tackle in the draft, but you already got Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen already. So, go figure.
Listen, you want to cause some turnovers and give your rookie a short field. Joe Flacco. And you figure with an offensive line with a young mobile quarterback, you're probably going to get the ball out of his hands quick. Because most of the offensive line trouble comes from, I don't think it's the offensive lineman's talent. I think to be in the league and be one of these elite groups, because they never come off the field. A lot of it is the quarterback getting the ball out on time, is the running back hitting the hole when available.
And some of it is chemistry. You can't keep changing your line every year either.
Yeah, so if you get these guys in there and you give them a simple blocking scheme and the quarterback isn't out there holding the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, like, listen, man, you got 2.5 seconds to make a decision. About 3 seconds, the trigger's got to be pulled. Because other than that, you're giving up sacks. You're gonna make the offensive lineman look bad because you're gonna be pissed off at them. They're gonna be pissed off at you. Like, yo, that ball's supposed to come out hot. I cut block over here so you can hit. Like, that's the whole point. The play's called 36 giant dragon hot. Like, that means you got to throw a goddamn ball. They'll be mad at me, and now they're leaving you on the ground, not helping you up. Who that happened to? It happened to somebody recently. Was like, oh, it was Russell Wilson in Denver. Like,
Denver, yeah.
Like they didn't help him up after you got hit or something
like
that.
Getting cussed out coming over to the sidelines by his linebackers and stuff.
Getting cussed out by the linebackers, the offensive linemen weren't stepping in between them because he's their livelihood. Like, listen, you perform, I get paid. Like, I need you to do your job while I'm doing mine. Don't hold on to the ball or scramble and you run into a sack. Now I look like I gave up the sack.
Right.
So I think I like watching. I like the new head coach. I like the new QB. I like the fact that they grabbed him second overall. It was no doubt about it. Like, we all knew he was going to Washington. I like the receiving core.
Mm-hmm.
I like, I think they still might be, if they have some kind of equity, maybe that Brandon Ayuk deal is out there.
I don't know. I
don't know how the calendar works. I don't know. I don't know if it messes up your wide receiver core, but it's like
what they should do. Tell Brandon Ayuk, you can go be a diva somewhere else. Go bring in T. Higgins for cheaper.
You're not gonna get it for cheaper.
Cheaper than Ayuk?
No, they both want this.
Ayuk want like 40 million. No, not 40 million. Ayuk want like 31 million or something like that.
They want $1 more than the other one gets.
That's fine. And you know what I'm gonna tell Higgins is, you were a number 2, sir.
Yeah, not at 6'5", 225. Well, he's not a number 2 in Washington. He's number 1 in Washington.
Then we'll just keep where we.
I would go with Ayuk because of chemistry, the relationship between him and your starting quarterback right now, because that's going to matter. We seen how chemistry and relationship basically propelled the Chiefs to a Super Bowl victory 2 years in a row.
Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase.
Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase. That made it to a Super Bowl just off that relationship. So
yeah, maybe I don't want
to take the risk. They got a new ownership group, so maybe they don't want to be too drastic, because I've always talked about these new ownership groups trying to microwave championships, but I think this is a move. This is calculated enough, because San Francisco, for a team that was up in overtime in the Super Bowl, their offseason feels worse than Philly's offseason. So I think if you can, they probably should have already made that deal. I think you should make all these deals before the draft, when all the picks seem sexy, and just put those out there. Like, because I would have given up my second round pick for Ayuk. Because then San Francisco can think, you know what? I think we can get Brandon Ayuk in the second round.
I mean, they picking up Ricky Pearsall anyway. So
yeah, so I just feel like making these deals before the draft, this makes the most sense to me. But I'm not privy to the inside knowledge of these NFL GMs.
Well, I like a lot of what Washington did. Outside of Jaden Daniels, I feel Washington got the best tight end in the draft. Ben Sinnott, and then on top of that, you have Zach Ertz, for him to kind of, learn from, get some mentorship. You don't even have to play Ertz. That's the best part. You don't even have to play him, but just having him around someone who was as good as he was at that position for such a long time.
Show him how to be a professional.
Yeah, show him how to be a professional, all that good stuff. Like I said, you got the half man Austin Eckler, so if nothing else, you just enhanced your red zone. Because he finds the end zone.
He finds the goal line.
Yes, he does. You know what I mean?
Some certain guys like Raheem Mostert is another guy that can just find the end zone. Austin Eckler was one of those guys that I don't know if it's just a play call, or if it's just the confidence, or if they just know we got 8 calls for him down here that are guarantees, or we got 18 calls. Like, if either you have a bunch of calls for this person that can get them in the end zone, or they are just relentless. Like we talked about,
Mhm.
NFC East, we talk about Zeke. Some of these guys can just find end zone.
Yeah.
Also, Eckler's one of those guys, and having a young, older quarterback. We talk about the transfer, and like I said, I tip my cap to Jayden Daniels for his maturity. I'll talk about it again. The way they treated him in the locker room when he was leaving Arizona State is like, yo, every single one of y'all would transfer to another school if you had the opportunity. Like, I don't know what the loyalty to Arizona State was, but I'm like, if you, like, say there was a player who wanted to go to like Bama or something like that, and Bama called, it's like you can't knock that person for taking an opportunity like you think is going to be better for them. Yeah, your team might take a step back, but like it is what it is. Some people got to look out for their lives, but the way they treated him in that locker room, the fact that they recorded it, people just kind of in his face and they put it out there, and he never really said, "Oh, I use that as motivation" or anything like that. He just went out and just played.
Right.
Won the damn Heisman.
Yeah, so I like I said, Washington bottom of the league in defense, like literally bottom. They went out and they brought in Dorrance Armstrong, who's been underrated for Dallas. Dante Fowler, who should enhance a little bit of a non-existent pass rush.
Yeah, he
You
didn't
know,
do that in Atlanta though.
no, he didn't. But I'm just saying, like he's still better than at that
He looked,
than
he just looked
anything
good next to
Washington
Aaron
had.
Donald.
He looks better. He did better at that than anybody Washington had on the roster. You got Bobby Wagner, still there to provide that leadership, that overall mature mentality, like you were talking about Zach Ertz, how to be a professional. But then you got my guy Frankie Louvu from Carolina, who's going to come in, and I think the idea is to have him play the Micah Parsons role. Obviously, he is not Micah Parsons, but he's quick enough. I don't think he's good enough in coverage, but if you just line him up to go get the quarterback, I think you might have something. You got Jeremy
That's
Chin.
scheme.
You got
That's
it's all
scheme.
about coaching. You got
Yeah,
you got Jeremy Chin in the he fits Dan Quinn's profile. He's 6'3". His arms touch the ground when he walk. You know what I mean? He's just one of those skull draggers that will come out there and hit you. And say what you want about Dan Quinn. Make all the jokes you want to make about Dan Quinn. He took a team to the Super Bowl. We know what happened. We ain't got to go there.
yeah, they
But
were up.
he took a team to the Super
And
Bowl.
and the thing about that, it wasn't just a Super Bowl run; it was the mid-season adjustment. Like I said, as a fan, I recognize it, and they doing interviews with guys. He had a bunch of young guys: Deion Jones, Jalen Collins, Louis Khan. Like he had a bunch of young players. And
Keanu
he's like,
Neal, I
"Yo,
believe.
Keanu Neal was one of the young safeties. Like, just play fast." So he took that same Seattle tackling technique in their cover three with the hard hitting strong safety and the free safety that was roaming looking for the ball. I think it was like Ricardo. Yeah, they called him Rico. So they had Keanu Neal playing the Cam Chancellor role, and they had corners underneath, and basically just was like you talking about. You got Louisville not good in coverage. Quinn's just going to give him a spot. Like, listen, on the snap, I want you to drop 7 steps to your right and just stand there. Anyone comes in there, take him out. This guy's going to be behind you. This guy's going to be over the top. This safety is going to be coming down the middle on these kinds of plays. So, because we talked about, we had this conversation on the hot box that I think it was what's the guy's name? The former defensive coordinator the year before, and they were running a lot of cover 4 and quarters, and the Dallas receivers, the Dallas corners were getting torched. And it was like the scheme was too complicated. Guys said at the end, like in their exit interviews, it was like, we were just trying to do too much. And Dan Quinn came in like, listen, maybe we're gonna play cover 3 with a safety that row, like a rover in the middle, pressure off the edge, defensive tackles pressure up the middle. And they went hybrid with the linebackers. It bit them in the playoff game because they didn't have big backs, like big linebackers to stop the run. But for the most part, they were able to cover tight ends and they're able to make tackles in space. That's all you really have to do to be a top defense. Because what Washington's problem was, they were getting beat over the top because they were running a lot of cover 2. And if the safety's out of position to cover 2, it's a wrap.
And they got a corner that's the size of the Passion of the Christ dude.
Yeah, Justin Fields torched the Commanders last year. That was like, and then Atlanta played him. I was like, why y'all not throwing the same routes that Justin was throwing? Because like DJ Moore was wide open, but that's because it just was a scheme. So if you switch up the scheme, he's not open.
I'm feeling optimistic of a 4-2-0 start. You know, it's not going to be easy, you know, going to Tampa to start out and then coming home for a division game against the Giants. Then you go to Cincinnati for a Monday night game. So I'm going to chalk that up as a L, obviously. You know what I'm saying? But as I look at this, you know, when I get around week 7 through 9, Carolina, Chicago at the Giants. Got to go 2-1 there. Got to go 2-1 there.
One is Carolina.
And I'm not even like that far off of saying I want 3-0 in that stretch, but you got to at least get me 2-1 there, because starting week 10, Pittsburgh at Philly and then Dallas. You know what I mean? So you might get me 1 and 2 there.
You're more likely to get division game on the road. Like I said, MetLife is pretty hostile environment. Like
and they got swept by the Giants last year.
They were kicking
even
Jet
without
fans.
Daniel Jones.
They were kicking Jet fans out of that game last year when I went for the Falcons game. They were just tossing guys because they were just on the refs. They was on the coaches. They just was yelling and cussing. So if Jaden can keep his head, then yeah, he could probably win there. But we got to see what the Giants are going to bring, because I'm not sure what their. I know they drafted Malik Neighbors, but I don't know. Are they going to be an air it out kind of offense?
They still got. They drafted Jalen Hyatt last year.
They drafted Jalen Hyatt, and he was, talking about he was going to be one of the best wide receivers in the league. Didn't really shine through.
Mm-hmm.
So Washington has a chance, but I always give the nod to the home team in like these rivalry games, especially in the NFC East. I just think I think it's tough for these teams to win on the road, because the fans, that's their Super Bowl. When Dallas comes to Philly, the Philly fans are probably, when Atlanta comes to Philly, the Philly fans are going to be Philly fans. When Dallas comes to Philly, it's going to be a little bit more ramped up. That environment's going to be a little bit more complicated to navigate than the Atlanta game. They're still going to be rowdy. They're still going to be wild. They might still throw batteries or whatever the hell they do in Philly games. They still might fight in the audience. You might still see the dean of Temple out there screaming at the refs with no shirt on, like the guy was, the guy who's like the dean of Penn a few years back. But when the Giants come to town, it's just a different environment. And I think the first time Jayden goes into MetLife, I think that's going to be a tough win. Soldier Field, or the game against Chicago is going to be at home. They legit had a judge back in the old link. So yeah, I just that's going to be a tough stretch. But with Washington, like I said, I think 6-11, 7-10 for them would be probably viewed as a successful season.
All right, I'm gonna circle back to that. I am excited to see the Giants defense. I wish I could say the same thing about their offense, but I think the Giants might have something with this defense. They went out and got Brian Burns from Carolina. So that means to me is that Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau going to be able to work. I like Deonte Banks in the secondary. So the Giants, in my estimation, I'm going to just go out on a limb, are going to have a top 8 defense. The problem is
they're going to have a bottom.
Their offense might be 25. Yeah. And it's not even necessarily about Daniel Jones per se, because I do like Brian Daboll. I think that he's a smart play caller. I think that
there's no threats.
It's just that. Well, not only that, but it goes back to what I always say that you hate that I always say. But I don't know what to expect from the offensive line from the Giants. They've been terrible for at least from the standpoint of Daniel Jones having to improvise too much. Like, now, granted, I know that the Giants had success when Daboll was calling for Daniel Jones to take off with the ball, design run plays, but when you give Daniel Jones too much time to think back there and he holds on to that ball, bad things happen.
Yeah, but yes, and instead of yeah, but
I was going to say it. I was going to say it.
It's like because I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah. I was going to say it.
I just don't feel like that the Giants have the weapons they need.
Mm-hmm.
I think they look like, oh, we drafted Malik Neighbors. We're gonna make it make it work. I just don't see a person on their offense that's keeping a defensive coordinator up coming up with new plans.
And maybe that's going to be Malik Neighbors.
So I figure if you look at, but even wide receivers don't often don't keep you awake at night. I think you can just be like, you know what, we'll double them, and that's kind of it. Like if you have one guy, like what Belichick used to do. Okay, I'm gonna put my second corner on your best wide receiver, and he's gonna have help all day. And then I'm gonna put my best corner on your number 2 wide receiver. You know, something that's simple. Like I don't think defensive coordinators are gonna be like, when you play like the Ravens, it's like, all right, cool. We got Derrick Henry, we got Lamar Jackson, we got the running game, we got the tight end, we got Zay Flowers. We have to account for 4 or 5 guys every play. The Giants, if you can account for Malik Neighbors, if that's the guy that you got to watch, then that's it. I think you can stay in the framework of your defense. You don't have to blitz. If you're not a team that blitzes a lot, you don't have to do it that week. If you're a team that likes to sit in zone and that works, I don't think the Giants make you adjust that at all. You know, and that's gonna be the problem, because the expectation on Daniel Jones, $40 million at the quarterback position is a lot of money to you and I, because I'm not paying $40 million to anybody. I'm not signing any checks. So I'm not gonna laugh at that amount of money. But the pressure that I think comes with that, I think the conversations that come with that, he seems to be doing well in all of his press conferences since he's been in the league, because he's been pretty much marred for getting drafted 6th overall anyway. So I think he's been dealing with like, you don't belong New York media questions since he got drafted. So I don't think he's going to fall apart this year. But is Brian Daboll in a hot seat? Is he worried about his job? Because if he's not, well, then he's probably going to bench Daniel Jones if he doesn't perform. Because like, I'm here. Like if he knows, like, yo, I'm here, like I'm not losing this spot.
I mean, you know, when it comes to draft night, we always talk about it, right? You don't know what's real and what's a illusion, right? But we heard enough reports and rumors about, hey, are the Giants trying to get McCarthy? Are the Giants trying to get Drake May? Are the Giants trying? There was enough of that to make me think.
I never thought that made any sense.
No. I didn't either. Yeah. But what I'm saying though, there was enough of that to make me think, like, is Daniel Jones on borrowed time right now? Whereas, like, not that the Giants are looking to cut him or looking to trade him or anything like that, but literally, if he doesn't hit the ground running, like if they start out the season 2-5, you know what I mean? Like you said, is it Andrew Luck time? Andrew Luck time? You know, I mean, Drew Lock, Andrew Luck. Yeah, that's his name, Andrew.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? But anyway, point being, you know, Saquon Barkley was able to run for 962 yards last season without Daniel Jones playing a lot, you know, with that bad offensive line, without the threats at receiver that we talked about. So now Saquon's gone. You enter Devin Singletary, who had one of his better seasons last year in Houston. So do you think that Devin Singletary is a good enough running back to take some of that onus off of Daniel Jones?
Did he get a year with Daboll and Josh Allen in Buffalo, or was he in Buffalo when Daboll already had the job in New York?
That's a good question.
I think it's running back by committee. If you don't have a star running back, then it's by committee. So if you're not one of these, we'll go 6 to 8 teams that has a star, give you like at least a star feature back. Bijan Robinson, CMC, Saquon, Derrick Henry, Mostert. I want to say Pacheco, but like he's not really like the catalyst to that offense. So it's only like 5 to 7 teams that really have like a bell cow running back. A lot of them is running back by committee with young quarterbacks throwing 40 passes a game. So I think that's what the Giants will probably end up turning into is just, I know he catches well out of the backfield.
Yeah, he was there with Dayball.
Yeah, so he catches well out of the backfield. A check down is a best friend to a quarterback, especially a quarterback that's struggling. You want to get him, 11 for 14 in the first half, 140 yards. Get him some check downs. Let guys make plays in space where maybe the defense has to adjust in the second half. You get Malik Neighbors over the top. But as far as like setting up our base defense against the Giants offense, I'm staying with whatever we do. If we run a nickel cover 3, if we run a lot of 4-3, if we run whatever we running, I'm staying in that until Daniel Jones slices me for a drive. Right. Like he's going to get a couple passes off, but if he slices and dices for a whole drive, okay, then maybe I'd make some adjustments. But I haven't really seen that occur. Like my argument for him being top 10 was based off just like he was a bit of a dual threat, nearly 800 yards rushing as a quarterback. I think he had like 7 touchdowns, and I think he was like 16 or 17 passing touchdowns. So in that argument, he was in that second tier, tier 1, 2, and 3 being the bottom. He was in that second tier. So
yeah, so they didn't want to pay Saquon is what that came down to. They just didn't want to pay him. They had already paid Daniel. So, and I think the people at large, the public at large, were so critical of the Daniel Jones contract because
none of us got it. None of us understood it. You and I talked about it. Right. Like, why would you do that in the middle of your star running back asking for $1 million extra?
But Saquon,
and you give another guy $160 million who wouldn't even do or owe that.
But Saquon was up to 30% of that offense, and so like, and that's with Daniel Jones on the field. So the Giants had to make a decision. They weren't going to be able to keep, or they could have, but they didn't want to keep both of them. They planted their flag with the quarterback because we've been lied to for years about how important the quarterback position is when there's only one dude winning Super Bowls right now. But, like I said, he hasn't thrown for 25 touchdowns in the season yet. They bring in Brian Burns. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, Florida State, by the way. Like I said, I think Thibodeau and Lawrence are going to get off this year. Looking at the Giants' schedule, they couldn't have asked for a better start, especially like coming into a team that's coming in with all these questions. They open with Minnesota, Washington early, at Cleveland, and then like week 4, it goes to hell. So they get Dallas. They take the big trip to Seattle for Sunday Night Football. They play Seattle. They play Cincinnati for Sunday Night Football, Philly, and then at Pittsburgh. That's a back-to-back stretch, all of those games. So we're going to find out about the Giants real quick. We're going to find out about Daniel Jones real quick because same thing I said about Washington. Can the Giants get to 2-1? You know what I mean? And if they can, okay, maybe we got something here. But then after that stretch, starting with Dallas, ending with Pittsburgh, we going to know one way or the other what the Giants are going to be.
If they get Sam Darnold week 1, that should be a win. A rookie at home, and then I don't know what's up with Cleveland. Like I said, we'll preview the AFC North obviously here in a week or two. But Cleveland does have top defense, reigning defensive player of the year. And Deshaun Watson, for what it's worth, when he's on, he's on. It's just for some reason, last couple of years, it just felt as if something is off, like either with the offense or the way he plays or just his body. Like if he's not healed, you feel like
he was rusty.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but he's been rusty for 2 years.
He's been injured too.
Yeah, he got the suspension the first year in Cleveland where he missed 11 games. He came back, he was rusty. And then this guy, cool. Now you got a whole off season. You got the suspension out of the way. It basically was no one really talked about it aside from a few massage memes and jokes. But like you were essentially, other things have happened in the NFL to where now your scandal is like, it's the back page. So you figure he would come into last year and play a lot better. And it wasn't happening even before injury. It wasn't happening.
Right. So,
but if they get a healthy, they should start off 1-0. if not 2-0, playing against Sam Darnold, who plays like a rookie, and then a rookie quarterback with that new revamped defense. The games might be ugly. They might have to be content with winning games 17-13 or 20-14 and punting when it's 4th and 2 and they
They
could
got to
go
look a
for
lot like Ryan Tannehill, basically.
Yeah, they
like
got
those Titans, but without Derrick Henry. That's the problem.
Yeah, they just have to be willing to. They got to be willing to look at the situation. Like we talked about the Chiefs. The Patrick Mahomes, even in the Super Bowl, there was a couple of plays where he had his arm cocky. He wanted to let it go, but he was like, you know what? I can't afford to risk this ball. Check it down to McCole Hardman.
Right.
Check it down to Pacheco. Check it down to the third tight end that's just standing there wide open in the middle of the zone. Let's get 8 yards and go to 2nd and 2 versus trying to hit this bomb on 1st and 10. They might have to just understand, like, yeah, we paid Daniel Jones $40 million, but we got to play him like he's getting $4 million, like he's a rookie until he gets into the groove. And, back issues because he had back problems before the ACL.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big guy. Like he runs he's like 6'5", 235, 240.
Yeah.
That's a big body. So you want to make sure that you work him in the offense and just have real expectations. If they keep it week by week, they have a chance to be, like you said, 2-1. That game against Dallas, maybe by week 4, Dallas, like all the contract stuff kind of reared its ugly head, and maybe there's some implosion, very similar to how Philly kind of fell apart. Maybe you get a couple of weeks like that where you just get a couple of games, you just catch people off guard, defense gets a strip sack, just something that you can kind of build on. But as long as you don't come out here trying to throw 42 passes in week 1 to Malik Neighbors, or is he good? We only get 8 targets, stuff like that.
Right. So just to put a bow on it, I'm gonna go with, against my better will, I'm gonna go with Philly to finish 11-6. I got Dallas at 10-7. I got Washington 7-10. And I got the Giants 5-12.
5-12.
5-12.
I like you 7-10. You 5-12, 6-11 seems about the Giants' range. I got a little faith in Dallas.
I know the winning culture.
I just feel like I think that the way they play at home. So if we look at their schedule, let me double check, make sure. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
They only get 6 home games? I can't be reading. I gotta be reading that wrong.
Yeah, so their home games are New Orleans, Baltimore, Detroit, Philadelphia, Houston, New York, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, and Washington.
So they got 9. They play well at home.
Mm-hmm.
They undefeated at home, like I said, to the playoffs. So if they just hold serve at home, that's 9 wins right there. Having an advantage of having the 17-game season and having
I got Baltimore and Detroit. I got Baltimore and Detroit winning there.
And I
appreciate it, Dave. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So
I ain't never seen you wear no hat. Break it out. Bring them out. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth.
Yeah, I got Dallas winning the division.
Okay.
Like I said, I just don't trust the maturity of the Philadelphia coach, because whatever the problems were that ended their season, I haven't seen anything that
says
it's fixed.
Right.
So right. I know Jalen's going to be a good leader, but if his disinterest was associated with Sirianni, because remember in the Super Bowl when they challenged the play,
mm-hmm.
and he started like waving over to the sideline, and Jalen had to pull his hand down, like, why is your 20-something-year-old quarterback telling the damn near 40-year-old head coach to not taunt the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I mean, why am I telling you? Like, why are you doing this? I'm out here.
The same way I like Mike Zimmer, I like Vic Fangio as well. So I think we're going to see improvement on Philadelphia's defense. You know, I think that when I look at, like I said, I just think that Philadelphia has the most talent in the division. Like Dallas has lost a lot. Like they didn't necessarily lose.
They definitely addressed their defensive back. Yeah,
like Dallas didn't lose top shelf talent, but they lost, I think, enough of their depth that just gives me concern. Or as Stephen A. would say, it gives me cause to pause.
But maybe they see something, because, like I said, you got to give Jerry his flowers on his ability to build the team. It's just he just got to get the hell out of the way. I think if he didn't do interviews, if he didn't start doing as many radio shows during that Romo era, like if he just started peeling back after Romo and just kind of let Dak. But once Dak got good, it felt like it just ramped up, because you have a young running back, the young quarterback, rookie deals. I'm paying everybody else. We about to make a run at this thing, and it's like the bottom falls out. The Aaron Rodgers throw, because Dallas would have been a number 1 seed the year that Atlanta went to the Super Bowl. I remember I was talking to my dad. I was like, man, I like Dak. I'm like, he was young. I'm like, I really like Dak. I'm like, and he was like, what would you rather have? NFC Championship on the road,
all right,
or Green Bay at home? And I was like, but I think that year, it started building. I think Dallas was building something ever since then, but then Jerry was kind of.
So I'm gonna be 43 next month, right? Is Dallas going to beat San Francisco before I turn 50?
They're not beating them this year.
Yeah, they're not beating them this year.
Yeah, they're definitely not beating them this year. Like I said, we'll do our NFC West preview, but
a little harsh game, but I got you.
Yeah, I have a little bit of faith in Dallas. Like I said, just because I think they're professionals in the building, operate a little bit more heady than Philly. I think that if that's going to be the difference, especially with the loss of those leadership. Like I said, I think Jalen, as we've seen it in Alabama, we've seen him when he got benched and came in the game, and I've seen it when he went to Oklahoma and was, in the Heisman conversation. I think, did he win that? I don't think he won the Heisman.
No, he didn't win the Heisman that year.
He was in that conversation. So, and then getting drafted in the second round behind Carson Wentz and then stepping in and just building. I think he does have strong leadership capabilities. But the loss of the other veterans, that counts. Like, that has to count for something. It's not, it's not nothing, as people say. And I know it's a double negative, but the Sirianni piece is probably the piece that will, if I had to make a bet, my bet would be on Dallas to win the division.
Right. Yeah, so I think we both agree though on 3 and 4. So Washington third, Giants last.
Yes.
Okay, I can live with that. So what we got next? I think we got AFC East next.
Look at the AFC East. That should be interesting.
East and East. Yeah. So and just before y'all even think about it, no, I am not picking the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC East this year. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how the cookie crumbles. But stay tuned. Sports Reports Exhorted coming at you on Thursday. Like, how we gonna go 9-9, bro? You got an extra game up in there? You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying? Well, I guess we could go 9-8, right? Make the playoffs and then I guess lose in the first round. So you know what I'm saying? I see you. I caught the game. But like, review, subscribe, do all the free things, share it with your friends.
Share it with your grandma.
Know what's going on. Sports Reports Disorder, the biggest movement since Dipset. But we ain't got the beef with Jay Prince like Cam and Mace. Holla back. See you in a few days. Much love. Peace. As soon as I can get the music going, but we salute anyway. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. There it is. Boom. AFC East is next. Peace.
Holla.